What do you mean by that? Hey, this is Jared.
And I'm Jenna Lee, and this is...
What do you mean by that? It's a podcast about two performers that just happen to be married.
Yeah.
I think it's worse every week. Well, today we're going to tackle the topic of survival jobs. I think that all of us can relate to that in the acting community.
Yeah, let's talk survival jobs. So we've both worked a few. Honestly, as performers in most of our professional life, we've kind of had to do different survival jobs on and off. And I'm going to start this podcast with saying survival jobs are so often seen in such a negative light, and it's not a negative. There's actually a TikTok I saw that I was trying to find before the podcast to reference, and I could not find it, but I believe it's from Maggie Barra from the Actors Aesthetic podcast. But she was talking about survival jobs and how necessary they are and how they should not be seen as a bad light, because you're not doing a survival job because you've failed by any means or because you can't get anything, but you're doing it to just fuel yourself and fuel your passion and fuel your art. You cannot do your art if you can't eat and can't pay rent and can't do any of those things. So survival jobs are important and should be appreciated for what they are.
Absolutely. I agree with that completely. I think that it's really rewarding to work a survival job and be able to fund your passion and fuel your passion to work on different contracts and such like that. So it is a really good thing. I really love that TikTok said that.
Yeah, and a survival job, it doesn't have to be something you hate. Like, you can have more than one passion. You can have something you enjoy outside of acting and performing. Like, if you love kids and love working with kids, be a sub. I think that's one of the best jobs that actors can have. I was a long-term sub for a little while, so I didn't have quite as flexible of a schedule as you can. But if you're just doing the regular substitute teaching, you can make your schedule. You can come and go as you please. If you have an audition or have a gig, you don't sub that day, but then if you don't, you go and sub, and often it makes pretty decent money.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely like a freelance gig, and that's always a great thing to do in between contracts. I think that one thing with all of us actors here, we love, like, we have that bug for change. We love changing things up, and I think that comes with the territory of survival jobs. Sometimes you just change different jobs that you do, or sometimes you stick with one because you really like it, and they are flexible enough to let you leave and come back. I think that that's really a cool thing to see in what is kind of seen as a negative light whenever you hear survival jobs. But I think that it's really important that, like, a lot of people do love what they do all around, and plus networking, especially in some environments. Like, I have a ton of friends that work in, like, the restaurants or catering up in New York City or down near Atlanta, everything around, and they still get to meet a lot of people and work with a lot of people that they see on contracts, or they end up going and living with for a couple of months in a different state, in a different contract. It's really cool to see this tight-knit community come together.
Yeah, and anything flexible like that, like catering or, picking up these freelance gigs here and there, it's so beneficial for actors because, you never know when you might be gone for 2 months, you might be gone for a weekend, you might be gone for 10 months if you get one of those, long-term contracts. And so finding a job that can work with that, specifically those freelance gigs, are really good for that. But like you said, sometimes you do find a rare job that's really flexible and willing to work with you that you can leave for those contracts and then pick up and have that job waiting for you when you come back.
Yeah. And I do think it is important to not, just like in acting contracts, don't take just anything that you can get in the meantime if you have that option, because I think that burnout is a real big thing for actors. It's one of those things that if you work, a million just day jobs, and then you're trying to get a better day job, and then you kind of start sacrificing acting for that day job because you're just tired of the place you work and you can't get out of that place you work, and then you don't want to film anything whenever you get home, and you don't have that passion, and then next thing you know, you haven't been on a stage or performing in any category for so long that you're just kind of like, yeah, I'll just take this office job and it'll be over with, and that's all good if that's what you want to do. But I think that, as two aspiring actors that are married, we definitely take the approach of, you got to like what you do on your downtime, so to speak, so that you can really launch forward in your career and what you're really passionate about.
Yeah, just be really selective with how you're choosing to spend your time, because if you're spending 8 hours a day doing something that's just draining you, like you said, where does the rest of that energy come from? And then you're giving your life to a job that doesn't appreciate you back.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that we've definitely had that in the past. We've definitely worked some jobs that we could leave and come back to for a while, but and we have had some jobs that are gracious enough to let us kind of disappear for months and months at a time. But yeah, it's definitely something that you want to value. As people, we want to value each other, and if a company doesn't value your time, even whenever you're trying to give them your A++, then it definitely is something to look into to try to find something else to do in that meantime, and that spot that you're auditioning, getting to meet new people.
Yeah, and what I can say from my personal experience, having been in a job before that did affect me like that and did kind of drain me like that, if anything, and like you said, that job was so very gracious with letting us leave and come back from various contracts and very understanding of the life of a performer. But then when we were at that job, it could be a little exhausting, and it was just not as gratifying as it could be. And if that job taught me anything, it was that I do have to value myself as a person before. And that does translate into acting, performing gigs. Like, if I'm not taking care of myself and not putting myself in an environment that appreciates me and supports me and builds me up and gives me the energy to do things in all aspects of my life, then it's just not somewhere worth spending that much of my life in.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I also think that with that, whenever you're getting burnt out every single day, just working a certain day job that doesn't appreciate you, it kind of tends to push you to just accept any contract that's thrown your way in acting. And that also could be pretty detrimental to us actors, because like, if you accept just anything and then you end up hating it, then you hate your day job, then you hate your passion job, and then just everything starts like crumbling down. So if you've ever been in that situation, we got you, because we've been there.
Oh, yes.
We have been there. But onto the topic that everyone wants to know: interesting survival jobs that maybe you haven't thought of. Maybe you have. I think that one obvious one is serving. Serving is a great way to make money. They're very flexible, such like that. And of course catering as well. There's other jobs as well that I personally have not done myself, but I do know some other people that it works out with. IT jobs are a big factor. I think that I'm not smart enough for that, but if you know how to code, good for you.
There's
because
good money in coding.
Good money, because you can do those remote jobs. They're usually task-based jobs too, so if you just get all your work done at the beginning of the week, then you got the rest of the week just to audition and do whatever you want to. There's also jobs like, I know one of my friends works with just like leasing offices for apartment complexes. And there's just tons of little gigs. I mean, there's dance teachers, which that's more in alignment with stuff. There's also just teaching positions in general.
Fitness instructors, personal trainers. That's a great career path to do on the side. If it keeps you healthy and keeps your instrument up there for all the performing tasks, and then you're also making money and have a steady income at the same time.
Yeah, and you can always just broaden your horizons. You can do personal lessons like we do, and then you can do other lessons. You can just do group lessons. You can do whichever you want, and there's always an outlet to kind of express your passion while also earning some money on the side.
Yeah, a really fun survival job I had that kind of let me express my passion while I was doing that is, we're fortunate enough to live in a kind of touristy town, and so there's a lot of attractions and a lot of entertainment-based venues. And so one of my survival jobs when I very first moved to this area was at the Titanic Museum. And while it wasn't explicitly acting and performing, my title at that job was a cast member, and I wore a costume every day, and I went out and, it was more speeches and more educational based, but I was still kind of putting on a performer and putting on that act to kind of put the guests in the world of Titanic, and put on that maid outfit and was the first class maid giving them tours of Titanic. And honestly, it was a really fun job. They were flexible with some gigs that I had during the time and would let me have the time off I needed to go to different things. And when I was at work doing the survival element, I kind of got to fuel that creative element of myself as well. Cool. So that was a really fortunate survival job I was very lucky enough to have.
Yeah. And just between contracts and everything, there's just so much change that's happening that I think that is one of the biggest factors of, the rough world of survival jobs, and just scheduling and all the stuff, and the apologies and the I'm sorry I can't be here for this, and the moving around and flying everywhere.
Yeah.
But that is why we made this podcast, because we're like, we hear a lot of like super glamorous stories of things, but we've always both connected to, you know, the more realistic, like, you know, the real struggle, because that's something that you're told about whenever you're studying, but you don't really know exactly how it's going to go until you're out there in the world, because, you know, you see these hyper successful people that never need a day job, and then you have other people. One person that comes to mind is John Krasinski. In his interview once, he was saying that he was serving in New York City, and he was like, I'm done. I think he said something like, he was like, serving is not as fun as they said it would be, and I think that I'm just going to go back home. And his mom convinced him to just be like, hey, well, you said you would, you know, you said that you would give it until like 2 years or something living in the city. So just, you know, you're about to finish up the year. Just give it a couple extra months. And I think that he said something within like the next 2 months or a month and a half. Can't remember. He said that he booked The Office.
Oh, wow.
And that is skyrocketed
right you after never that. Know. I mean, until you give it your full 100%, you never know what could happen. And you can't always give it that 100% if you're not doing that survival job on the side. So you have to find the balance of both working together to fuel this dream that we all have.
Yeah, I've noticed that going on contracts, like really like getting to like whether you have a roommate or you just have like some housemates or suite mates or whatever the situation is and whatever the theater provides, you know, a lot of people outside of the community, those are the ones that we all tend as actors to be like, oh, I don't really want to say what my, you know, survival job is because they're not going to understand whatever. But I'll say that everyone, whenever you go on a contract, in my experience, no one has ever judged a single survival job because we all got it. Mm-hmm. Like, we all know that we're working somewhere else, doing something else, and this is what we're doing for like 2 months, and we're going to live with those people for 2 months, and then we're going to move on. So if anyone's ever worried about being embarrassed about what they do on the side while you're fueling your passion project, don't be. You're out there, you're, you know, hitting the grind hard, and you're fueling what you love to do. So that is just really the message that I'm really trying to convey to everyone is never look down on yourself for working anywhere.
Yeah, don't get in your head about what other people are thinking, because 9 times out of 10 they're thinking about themselves more than they're thinking about you.
Especially in theater.
Especially in theater.
Especially in theater.
We can say that we're performers.
Yes, there we go. Because I mean, and we do it too. Like, you always, you're your worst self-critic, so you're definitely going to be thinking about that. They're probably thinking about the same thing. But yeah.
Yeah, it's a hard balance to find, but I mean, at the end of the day, we're all working towards the same thing and trying to find the best fit for what works for us. And not to get like too boring adultish, but I know the stresses come in of like, oh, but like, how do I get insurance? How do I get all these things? There are options out there if you don't have a long-term job that offers insurance for you, if you're jumping gig to gig, if you're more independent contracting with what you're doing. There are options. So just know that like the resources are out there. It exists. There's even special like funds that are out there for performers actively going for it. And it's kind of like an insurance, but specifically for actors that you can go online and apply for to be a part of that community and just get guidance from those. So I know when I was trying to find the balance of like, do I find a job? Do I just audition all the time? Like, how do I figure that out? I was like scouring the internet trying to find people's input and like, what did they do? I'm like, what do you do for insurance? What do you do to make money? What do you do to actually get the jobs? And it took some digging, but there are stuff out there. And I mean, that's why we're making this podcast today, because I would have listened to this 2, 3, 4 years ago. Even now, I would listen to this now. So just know that it's out there. And I think I've mentioned this before, but if you're not currently on contract and have those other performers to talk to, like Jared was talking about, find a Facebook group. Like, there's so many performing Facebook groups, and specifically ones that you can post anonymously, so you're not worried, you know, is someone that I know going to see this, or, you know, is an employer going to see this and think I'm talking negatively? You can post anonymously and put any question out there, even like, hey, I'm looking for a survival job that works with my busy schedule. What do you guys do? And then all these actors are responding to your thread, giving you all these different ideas and input, and just use the resources that are available to you. It's 2025. Use the internet. It's there.
Yeah, absolutely. And whenever you go into interviews and everything, and like, you know, judging on what you're trying to get, just be honest with them about like scheduling, and let them know you're going to give your 100% to them whenever you're on the job. and that this is also, you're an actor and you are going to feel that passion as well, and that's the dream you're chasing. And a lot of employers love it because they don't usually have actors,
No.
I almost said auditioning, oh my goodness. They
Interview.
don't have a lot of actors interviewing with them because this is a pretty small community, even though it feels big.
And employers love actors.
They love it. And because a lot of us are just so used to just talking to strangers, and the amount of things that these interview givers I've almost forgotten all regular lingo now.
I know.
The amount of things that these people hear, or like they have someone that just doesn't talk to them, or like they just don't answer any of the questions right, even remotely. I worry every single time I go into an interview because I'm like, oh, here we go. Like, these people don't know me. I got to make a good impression. What if I do something dumb? What if I drop my water bottle? What if I do anything? But like the amount of times that people have been like, what's a fun fact about you? Or what do you do for fun? Or what is your hobby? Or what is your passion? Usually theater or something, pop culture comes up. And the amount of people that like light up to be like, oh, that's really cool. That's really interesting. Is because I've always been like almost embarrassed in like a quote unquote normal setting to say like, oh yeah, I've done this on stage, or I've played this character or whatever, because I'm like, this is really awkward. They're not going to care. But the amount of people are like, oh, we've never heard that before, really makes you look a better candidate, in my opinion, in my experience, because I just panicked and said the first thing on my mind, and it ended up well. And if I can do it, y'all guys definitely can do it better than me. So that's just my little 2 cents of advice of just like they say in the audition room, just be yourself. Also, just be yourself with a day job. Don't worry about what they're gonna think if you're an actor. Just be honest and say, I'm gonna give my 100% on this job, trust me. And that's how I kind of go into it. I'm like, I'm going to give 100%. I'm going to be your best worker. I just will have to have some flexibility with some scheduling sometimes. And 9 times out of 10, they will usually work with you. Maybe not at first. They want you to prove yourself, but that's what I've learned.
And think about the skills that we have as performers and actors that lend itself to so many different career fields. Like, I've found myself in the last few job interviews I've done using so many things that I learned from performing. I had a job interview where they asked me like how I viewed time and time management, and I instantly went to the old theater thing of like, if you're on time, you're late, you got to be 10-15 minutes early is technically on time, and late, you're just fired. Like, that's what I was always taught in theater. And I told them that in the job, and they laughed at it, and they very much appreciated how much I valued time. And that's very much something that I got from performing in theater. And on top of it, when you were talking about, saying the first thing that came to mind in an interview, you don't always know what they're going to ask you. But I can bet if you're put on the spot asking a question, someone who grew up and has done theater for several years is going to be so much better on the spot coming up with something than someone who doesn't have that experience, because we're used to that. We use our improv skills, and yes, in a job interview, you shouldn't lie or anything like that. But improv, it tells you to think of the first thing and just go with it. So, honestly, tell the truth. Like, obviously, go with that. Tell the truth. But say the first true experience that comes into your head and just roll with it. And even, if it doesn't make sense completely to what the interviewer asked, if you sell it, again, actors are really good at selling a performance. If you sell it, they're going to be like, oh, wow, this person's really personable, and they know how to answer a question, and they know how to hold eye contact and talk, and they're going to be great working with guests or in customer service, or we have sales. Like, there's so many jobs that acting lends itself to. Oh yeah,
I'm really glad that made me really excited that you brought up the improv thing, because I was just thinking about saying something about that. Because that is totally true. On the spot, like fixing things, like we've all been backstage and we've all seen something either go very minorly wrong or horribly wrong, but the show must go on, and we have figured out some way, whether there is like just debris all over the middle of the stage, or something's broke, or like I've had like,
or when I drop a line and you have to pick it up on stage.
That. But like I've had like cheers and glass like crazy. Wine, like just bursting everywhere.
I was so glad I was there for that.
So like, but we have to just keep going, because like, what are we gonna do? Stop the show?
No.
And that kind of just like that kind of thing that's invested in us kicks into gear whenever we're doing day jobs. And whenever I say us, I mean like all of us, y'all listening too, not me and Jenna.
Yeah,
There's been
everyone.
many times that we have frozen. But all of us actors, we know how to like just work with it, roll with it. You got to do what you got to do. You got to go out there. Your voice isn't feeling great today. Guess what? You're going out there usually anyway.
Yeah.
So, but I'm glad you brought up the improv thing. So, I was actually just in an interview a little bit ago, and I was asked like, oh, what is one thing, I've always been afraid of this question, is like the sell me this pin thing.
Yeah.
They're like, what is one product or franchise that you can sell to me right now that will make me want to go out and get like this product tomorrow? Instant panic, right?
Yeah.
Instant panic. But I was actually telling some college buddies this the other day, and I looked around the room and I saw one of the Lego sets, like the one of like the adult quote unquote Lego sets that I was gifted for like Christmas on a bookshelf, and I was like, should I say it? Should I say it? Should I say it? And I was like, I'm gonna do it. And I was like, I think it's Lego. I think that's something that brings everyone together, and it's like a puzzle. But if you think puzzles are boring, it's more fun than puzzles. Sure. And and it was really funny because both interviewees, one was like dead set on like they love Lego, and I had no clue. The other one was like, I don't like Lego, but you know what? You're right. It was very, very accomplishing whenever I did finish that one Lego set. And I was like, yes. I was like, I thought I flubbed that. I thought they were going to be like, dude, this guy's talking about Legos, and he's talking about like singing on stage. What on earth does this have to do? So I just went with it. Yeah, you never know. And I almost didn't say Lego. I'm really glad I did.
I'm glad you did.
Because we were trained back in the old days in college. The watchman at the gate is those muscles right in between your eyebrows, kind of at like the top of the bridge of your nose. And whenever the watchman at the gate, you're looking confused. Maybe I was taught this. But is whenever you like say something, you're like, oh, that was dumb, and instantly you scrunch up those muscles. And the watchman at the gate is like the death of improv and death of doing something organic. So don't worry about the watchman at the gate. Just say what you're gonna say and just do what you're gonna do.
And if you're ever nervous about an interview going into it, just especially as a performer, know that you're probably more prepared than the other candidates. And I'm not trying to like downshoot anyone or anything like that, but like I've been in an interview before where I was like, oh, I don't know how this is going. I don't know if I'm doing very well, but I felt like my answers were okay. But I was like, oh, what if I'm, not answering how they want to? Like, what if I'm not saying what they want to hear? And I'm not going to go into too many specifics, but there was a guy in the interview who had previously worked for Pink, the Victoria's Secret brand. And they asked him a question about like working in his most recent job, and he surely did answer. And it's not an answer I would give in an interview, but
gosh.
It made me feel like, again, not to down this guy, because he did technically answer their question correctly. He just might have said a little bit extra too. But I was like, I think I'm okay.
Yeah, at least he didn't say that. Yeah, at least he didn't say that. Well, I think it's funny this podcast kind of turned into like a life advice thing, but we have been through it quite a bit
from the perspective of actors.
And we are constantly learning and growing, and we love listening to how other people are doing. So and I think it's funny whenever everyone tries to like cover up what they used to do, like pulling a Brad Pitt, like, no, I didn't do anything before acting. Absolutely not.
No, all of them had a survival job at one point, unless they were born and instantly on Disney Channel. But
I know,
we're not talking about that.
But yeah, we've definitely been through it. We'll learn and grow. Currently, like right now, I'm working a remote job, and you're up to other stuff. What are you up to?
Yeah, I'm working part-time, and I'm so fortunate to have found a job that offers great benefits, great flexibility. They offer good leaves that if I need to leave for a contract and then come back, they're totally supportive of it. They even let me like transfer around the country if I need to work in a different state for a little bit if I need to. They work with me very, very well. So I feel very fortunate to have found a good survival job.
Yeah. It's always wonderful whenever they and you're working with other actors. I'm not sure if I am. I'm just working at home. So I guess anytime you're home, I'm working with another actor. But yeah, it's really been a really good time. So thank you guys for hanging out with us and just listening to us ramble about survival jobs, because it is something that we all come into play. I hope that everyone who is listening to this has, a job that they love doing, whether you're on the stage or you're not. I hope that you are super happy, and we would love to hear what you've liked in the world of survival jobs. You can leave a comment on this podcast, or you can go over to our Instagram page at Jared and Jenna.
Yeah, and if you're, not in a place that you're super happy about right now, reach out to us about that too, because we have also been there, and we can share, what little we know and what little we've learned about it. But
Yes.
yeah, just let us know. And to those of you who have reached out to let us know that you listen every single week, thank you. We see you, we hear you. We love that you listen, and we love your comments and your messages, and we just think you're awesome.
Yes,
So thank you.
absolutely. Thank you guys so much for listening. And also, we just want to tell you guys, we are your biggest fan. We're cheering you on, anyone that is listening to this. So please, please, please reach out. But we love all you guys, and we'll see you on the next one, okay?
Bye.